Welcome to the section of the course, Loading and Examining the Data. In the previous section, I gave you an overview of the course and showed you how to set up a D3.js development environment. Every data visualization is an attempt to tell a visual story using that data. But every data visualization starts with the data, knowing where to get it and how to put it together, and being able to load it so that it can be visualized. The purpose of this section of the course is to show you a place where some data can be obtained and how we can load it into our application. The data that we'll use in this course is collected from the World Bank and represents a collection of different types of economic indicators that they have collected over the last 45 years. In this section, we'll look at three primary areas. We'll start with getting an overview of the data that we'll use throughout the course. This data is collected from the World Bank, and I'll take you to their website, show you these sets of data, how to download them, and how they're put together so that we can use them to create a visualization. Next, we'll look at how to use D3.js to load data from a web server. Not only will we look at how to load the data from the web server, but also how to transform it into JavaScript objects that are easier to use in creating a visualization. The final thing we'll look at in this section is actually the data once it's loaded into the browser. We'll look at how this is structured as JavaScript objects, as well as how to use D3.js to convert those objects into HTML to show us a textual representation of the information. We'll start by creating this simple textual representation just to show how we can use D3.js to create elements in the HTML that show us the underlying data. We'll move to creating a graphical representation of the information in following sections of the course. So let's jump right in and learn how to start loading data with D3.js. Welcome to the first video of this section, Overview of the Data. In this video, we're going to take a look at the following. We'll start with a quick introduction to blocks.org, which is a website created by Mike Bostock, who is the creator of D3.js, that he put together so that he and other people can share sample D3.js data visualizations. Then we'll go on to looking at one of the examples on that site that I put together from my D3.js by example book. This is a bubble chart which uses an earlier set of this data and will be useful to look at as an example of what we'll be attempting to create in this course. I'll then show you some of the World Bank pages where this data has been sourced. We'll look at how to save that data from the World Bank and take a quick look at its content. We will then look at a version of that data that I put together, combining it all together into a unified single data file that we'll use throughout this course. We'll be looking at a few different web pages in this section. So here's a set of references for all the pages that we'll look at so that you can have those URLs handy for your exploration at a later time. So let's open Chrome and go over to blocks.org. Blocks.org is a great resource for learning D3.js. This site was originally created by Mike Bostock, the founder of D3.js. He felt it would be great to have a website that showed off various different data visualizations created with D3.js. This page presents you with a dashboard of a number of different data visualizations created with D3.js. You can click on any of these and be taken to another page on blocks.org that shows you the visualization and the code that creates it. Let's go take a look at one of these. I'm a fan of the Epicyclic gearing example, so let's click on that and go take a look at it. Okay, we're at the Epicyclic gearing example. You can see here all these blocks will have the D3.js visualization at the top, potentially a brief explanation, and then all the code that creates the visualization below it. So these blocks are great because not only do you see the visualization, but you also get all the code, and often you get an explanation of how the code works. So let's head back to the dashboard page and then switch over to the blocks that I put together for my D3.js by example book. So here's all the examples I put together for the book. Now this page auto loads. This isn't all of them. As you scroll, it loads some more. But we can just click on one, go to its 12.4, the Albers USA map projection. So you can see the visualization plus the code. We can head on back. One that we want to look at is the 7.8 example, which is a bubble chart. Now I just have this open in a tab, but you can go directly to this link. Now this is the animated bubble chart based upon this World Bank data that I put together for the book. The data we'll be looking at has a few more years of information in it. Now this isn't animated right here because the page is already loaded, But if you go and reload the page, you'll see that this animates through all the years in the data. This is going to be our eventual goal of this course, is to create a similar visualization with this with the same data, but study all the concepts along the way of how this is put together. So now let's go look at some of the data from the World Bank. I'll click on this tab here, and this is going to take us to the page that I referenced that shows life expectancy data. This data set represents the life expectancy of someone born in a given country that the World Bank tracks in a given year. This data in World Bank nomenclature is referred to as an indicator. And if you see on the URL up here, it says sp.dyn.le00.in. That's the name of the indicator that's collected here. This data has been collected from 1960 through 2016 for roughly 200 countries that the World Bank monitors. The World Bank has hundreds, if not thousands, of these indicators, and you can search this site for various different indicators that they have and pull up pages that are similar for any of those indicators. A page for any of the indicators will look similar to this one, where you'll see a description and then there's a graph in here, which generally shows you the trend of the data inside of that data set. So this is from 1960 to 2015, and it shows you that the life expectancy is going up. And you can use this slider to move around between the different years and see how this changes. In one of our samples, we'll actually put a slider like this on it so that we can navigate through the years. You'll see down here they also put a table showing you some of the data. So this is showing 1975 for a given country and then back through to 2015. This little graphic is called a spark line, and it's showing you the trend inside of the data for that specific country. Now all of the data on the World Bank is available for download or through an API. We're just going to download them here, so you can get it in 3 formats. This will download the CSV, so you can see it's connecting. It's actually connecting to their API URL. And there we go, it's gone and downloaded. So let's go and look at this data and see what's in here. So double clicking on this will expand it on a Mac. And opening that folder, we can see that there's 3 files. The first of which here is the actual data. The other 2 files are metadata. Just previewing this quick on a Mac, we can see this is kind of splayed out like a spreadsheet. It's a CSV. We'll jump back into the editor and look at this in more detail in a moment. So let's get back into VS Code. Let's start it up. Okay, our editor's open, so let's hop back to Finder and drag this file into the editor and start examining it. And the file starts with a few lines of just commentary information. We're just going to ignore these, and the data files I've given you in the project already have these removed. The real first line of the file then consists of the names of the columns for the data. So these include country name, country code, what indicator this is, and then there's columns for each of the years, 1960 all the way through to 2016, although the data for 2016 here is actually empty. So we're going to ignore data in that column. Then for each country, there's the country name, the code, there's the indicator's description, that indicator ID that we talked about before. And then for each year, there's a numeric value, which is just the expected lifespan of anybody born in that particular year in that country. So let's hop back into the browser and look at the next data set. I've changed over here to the fertility rate page. This fertility data is a measurement of how many children a woman is expected to have in their lifetime, given they're born in a particular country and in a given year. You can see the same type of chart here on their page, and you can see here that the general trend is downward. So people are having less kids as time goes on, is what we can summarize from this. There's the same kind of summary data down here in the table. You can see a lot of the stuff's trending down, and then we can download these. So let's download the CSV. There we go, it's starting up. There we go, it's downloading. Now let's go and open this up. So let's go over to Finder. There we go, and let's expand this. So we have a similar set of files, one of them being the actual data file, and the other files are metadata. So let's jump back into Visual Studio Code and take a look at this data. There we go, we're back in the editor. Let's close out the old data set that we just looked at and go open this one up into our editor. And there we go. Let's close the second pane there. The structure of the data in this file is very similar to the other. So you can see we have a different indicator here. And we have some slightly different values in here because instead of lifespan, this is now average number of children that a woman is expected to have. Now let's hop back into the browser and look at our third data set. Okay, let's go into the tab for this data set. This one is total population. So this will give us the total population of the given country for that specific year. Again, we have the same type of information on the page. We get a graph showing that our population in the entire Earth is going up a lot in the last 46 years. So let's come over and download this. There we go, it's downloaded. Let's open this up in the Finder and unzip it. And you can see, again, we have a similar structure, one file with the actual data points and two metadata files. Let's go back into our editor, close the previous data set, pop back in, and open this up and take a look at it. So this file, like the other two, has the same structure, except it's a different indicator. So it's population, total. And the numbers represent the total population of that country in that year. Now let's go and look at one of the metadata files. Head back to Finder, and let's open up this metadata file. Let's go open it in the editor, close out the other tab, and you can see here, this just gives us some metadata. So keyed off of the country code, we're going to use that as the key for organizing our data. From that code, then, we have a particular geographic region. So you can see different ones here: Latin America and Caribbean, South Asia, Europe and Central Asia. And this flows through for all these different countries, giving you these characteristics. Now, these regions are made up by the World Bank. It's their nomenclature and how they organize information. Point is, we're going to use this region as one of the different dimensions of the data that we'll be plotting in our bubble chart. Now let's go and look at the code for the course inside of Visual Studio, as I've included these data files for you in here. Let's open the data folder, and you can see I have a fert.csv file. So I've removed those first 4 lines of noise at the beginning. So these are in here, and you have this straight up starting with the header column there, and then all the data rows. The life expectancy data is in life_expectancy.csv. And the population data is in population.csv. I've also taken the metadata and put it in a regions.csv file. So the data that we're going to be using is a combination of these 3. I put these together into a single file based upon a common key of the country code. The process of doing this is beyond the scope of this course. It's more of a data sciencey process. But I have included some Python in here, particularly an IPython notebook, which you can use that does this merge if you want to look at how that's done. The file with all this data merged together is chart_data.csv. And we can see there's a lot of rows in here. There's 13,000 some rows of data. It's quite a bit of data. So let's go back up to the top and see how this is organized. First field is the country code, and everything's sorted by country code. So we'll see all the AABWs, then the AFGs, all the way down through the Zs. The next level of ordering is the year. We see 1960, 61, 62. Then we have country name, life expectancy, then the fertility rate, the population, and then the geographic region for that country. There's another file, year2015.csv, that's broken down in such that it only contains the data for 2015. This is a bit more manageable. This only has a couple hundred rows instead of 13,000. So let's go down to the bottom and see that we have 248 rows of data. It's a little more manageable. So you might ask, why are we going to use this data? I picked this data because I think it has a number of interesting characteristics to it. In a nutshell, it has 5 dimensions of data that we will be examining throughout this course. What we're going to be doing throughout this course is showing how we can represent these extra dimensions inside of a data visualization. Inherently, we only have up and down, so X and Y, to work with. Our X data in this will be our life expectancy. So you can see on the bottom of this graph, we're going to have 20 through 80, or depending what the particular year is. Then the fertility rate will be along the y-axis. Another dimension will be the population. And for this, we're going to represent that with the size of the bubble in the chart. The next dimension is region, and we're going to use the color of the bubble for that. And you can see here, these tend to group into clusters based on region, which is not something I don't think that you'd inherently notice by just looking at the data. The final dimension that we'll represent is time, and we'll do that by animating the chart through the different years within the data. This animating the chart through the data visually of how this data changes over those years. So we've pretty thoroughly gone through this data and how it's organized and what its values are, and how it's going to apply to the visualization.